Respect for one's parents is the highest duty of civil life. This ancient proverb holds true in Hong Kong culture, where repaying your parents for their efforts is a central responsibility of any child. Take Heidi here, for instance. For her, financial support to her grandmother is a form of repayment. Although she wants to fund her grandmother's retirement, barriers between her financial management style and her grandmother's make this process overly difficult. This is an opportunity for PayMe. Good afternoon. My name is Chloe, and I'm joined by my colleagues Hannah, Gary, and Thomas. Today, we are beyond excited to bring to you an exciting solution for PayMe to become a leader in digital payment. Our Pay solution will accomplish three things. One, provide accessibility to older generations with a new PayMe family account feature. Two, retain the younger generation customer base by integrating HSBC investment offerings. And three, target large merchants and SMEs in a peer-to-merchant or P2M strategy that'll make PayMe profitable. We are confident that Pay will lead to significant quantifiable impacts for PayMe. I'll pass it off to Hannah to get us started.
Thanks, Chloe. Before diving into our solution, let's take a closer look at the cultural landscape in Hong Kong. Firstly, as you can see on the left, it is common practice for children to financially support their elders, with youth contributing to their family on average thousands of dollars each month. Secondly, as listed on the right, we recognize that Hong Kongers hold traditional beliefs in age as a measure of respect, like we saw with Heidi and Ms. Kwok. Thus, the way financial payments are approached in Hong Kong households is deeply rooted in family support. So let's zoom out and see how this looks on the macro scale of the Hong Kong payment market. The digitization of payment transactions was accelerated due to the pandemic, as we saw a 68% increase in mobile wallet use. Astonishingly, we see that over a third of Hong Kongers do not have a bank account, and 82% of this population is above the age of 65. And thus, we see a disconnect here between the market trend and the customer base. On one hand, digital payments are becoming the norm, but on another, a large portion of the aging population is not equipped to make financial transactions. And we see that the government is already trying to remedy this with consumption vouchers. These time-sensitive $1,000 vouchers can only be redeemed digitally, which motivates Hong Kongers to adopt electronic payment systems. But what are individuals looking for in their financial services as they move to the digital space?
Thank you, Hannah. As she mentioned, we see that there are two main customer types. On the left in pink, we have younger generations like Heidi, which consists of tech-savvy millennials and Generation Z, who are well acquainted with PayMe. On the right in blue, we have older generations like Ms. Kwok, who are being left behind in the digital payment adoption, but are also worried about the risk associated with it. Ms. Kwok represents 30% of Hong Kong population, which is expected to double in the next 25 years. Given that the aging population will be a growing concern for PayMe, we must keep in mind that according to research studies, the older generation is only considering fintech tools that are both customer-centric and full of assistance tools, so that they can navigate digital payment without fear. So how can PayMe help? And what are its competitive advantage? So let's take a look at the competitors. WeChat is already dominating the social value landscape. Alipay is known for their pure convenience and powerful e-commerce integration. And lastly, Octopus cards already provide a fully integrated system in Hong Kong. Thus, what sets PayMe apart is its parent company, HSBC. PayMe's connection to capital markets means that they can leverage the banking industry in their product offerings. What can we conclude from this analysis?
Let's combine our understanding of Hong Kong culture with our competitive advantages to guide our solution with three main goals. Number one, PayMe needs to increase acquisition in the currently disconnected older generation. Number two, PayMe needs to increase retention among younger new customers and involve them in the HSBC ecosystem. And number three, PayMe needs to explore monetization potential by expanding their peer-to-market strategy. So for PayMe to achieve market leader status, we can instead ask the following. How can PayMe create a profitable long-term competitive advantage for both older and younger generations? We were given 5 potential opportunities for PayMe, which you can see listed at the top. To decide the one that aligned best with our customer preferences, we use the criteria that you can see on the left. The main criteria we use include long-term growth, competitive advantage, and synergy with HSBC. The synergy with HSBC rates the solution's compatibility with the parent company, as we identified this is a competitive advantage. So after rating each opportunity based on these criteria, we see that the fourth one, which is expand mobile investment products, scores the highest. So in our long-term efforts to convert PayMe users to generate retention, we want to upsell younger customers like Haiti from PayMe to HSBC financial products, which requires a fundamental change in her brand perception. As you can see on the left, we also want to acquire older users like Ms. Kwok, which includes eliminating barriers to onboarding. All in all, this flow of customers will encourage movement from users to PayMe, from users from PayMe to HSBC, and vice versa.
And this flow is what the Pay solution will achieve. So let's start with that first piece, PayMe accessibility. As Hannah mentioned earlier, providing financially for elders is a quintessential part of Hong Kong culture. Thus, we introduced the PayMe family account, a way for users to create supplementary accounts for their dependents so that all members of the family can transact through PayMe. In this way, we leverage our powerful young demographic to onboard their older family members. PayMe Family will provide tools that make financial transfers easy for both the user and their dependent. First, it'll make it simpler to transfer and request money than ever before. There will be suggestions for common denominations and the option for these transfers to be automated, which will make it easy for Heidi to support her grandmother. Moreover, the interface of the supplementary family account is made more accessible. Although around 80% of Hong Kong's older generation does have a smartphone, it's important to understand their unique challenges to adapting to these apps. And so thus, the account will include larger fonts and buttons, voice accessibility features, as well as the ability for the primary account to select what additional features are available to the supplementary one. For someone like Mrs. Kwok, PayMe becomes much easier to learn how to use. Besides receiving money, Mrs. Kwok also has the opportunity to request a transfer from the primary account. This sends a notification to the primary user, Heidi, who can easily select yes or no, and as a result, the money can be transferred almost immediately, even if they're not physically together. In short, supporting your family has never been easier. According to a study by the AARP, fintech solutions like digital wallets must provide three main things: clarity, assurance, and control, in order to be adapted by older generations. The PayMe family account considers these various nuanced needs by integrating 1, clear explanations of what is happening at every step, such as a description of how requesting money will send the primary account a notification. 2, confirmations of payments, such as when they're received or sent. And 3, the ability to very easily opt in and out of automatic payments from the dependent end, such as those automatic monthly transfers. And ultimately, the PayMe family account helps us meet the company's first managerial goal of getting older generations on the PayMe platform so that it can increase market share. And with that in mind, I'll pass it off to Hannah to move on to the next part of our solution.
Thanks, Chloe. Now that we have connected with the older generation through younger family members, we must now address retention of these younger generations. A recent study by McKinsey on consumer behavior in Hong Kong and China showed that 42% of young consumers intend to save more post-virus, and 41% consumers want to increase income by investing. And overall, we see that there's a clear demand for investing tools for these customers. And that's where PayMe Invest comes in, a new component to the app that will promote virtual saving and investing. PayMe Invest will help users save money every time they transact through the app using a feature called Roundup Savings. Each user will be able to select how much they want to round up to each transaction, whether that's 5 or 10 HKD. And then each time they spend money at a store or transfer money to their friends, PayMe will round up their purchases and save the difference into PayMe Invest. This encourages individuals to easily start saving with HSBC, even if their original PayMe account was linked to a different financial institution. And over time, the incremental savings earn a low interest rate. And before they know it, the user will have hundreds of dollars saved. Someone like Heidi can use these funds through PayMe Family to lessen the burden of supporting her grandma, or transfer it over to HSBC's Easy Invest app with the click of a button. But the potential of this feature does not just end here. PayMe Invest provides a logical connection for consumers to start using other HSBC products. After accumulating 600 HKD, users will be prompted to continue growing their savings in one of many HSBC accounts. And as one more push, we can combine this with limited time point offers, bonuses, and other rewards to encourage individuals to open accounts with HSBC immediately. This is especially important for our younger Gen Z and millennial demographic who do not have large financial assets and portfolios, but will now start building them through HSBC. And thus, users are able to start their saving journey on PayMe and continue their loyalty with HSBC. As the go-to-market strategy for PayMe Invest, PayMe will leverage a multi-channel marketing campaign that reaches both existing and new customers with this new value proposition. First, a pop-up will inform and prompt current users to enact the roundup feature once they open the app. And secondly, a social media campaign on Instagram and YouTube, which are the apps that Hong Kong Gen Zs and millennials use the most, will highlight our access to investment services. And ultimately, Pay Me Invest helps to resolve the second managerial goal of increasing retention of new users. Just through buying food or paying back your friends through Pay Me, you are saving money with HSBC. And simultaneously, we've created a natural segue to keep banking with HSBC. So now I'll turn it over to Gary to address the last part of the Pay solution.
Thanks, Hannah. Now that PayMe has addressed the customer in both the younger and older generation, let's turn to the merchant side of PayMe and talk about how they can yield profit. Currently, PayMe does not charge fees on the P2P consumers. Thus, how can we become profitable in the future? The PayMe team realized that if merchants were charged a transaction fee, then PayMe can generate a profit for every single transaction. To increase market share and onboard merchants that use PayMe, the executive team made 5 strategic changes: rebrand, gamification, partnerships, gain exposure, and finally, the master merchant network. All 5 of these strategies point towards one direction, which is how do we align PayMe so that we can attract more merchants? Currently, PayMe has 2 types of merchants, small and large ones. Diving deeper into the merchants, PayMe is currently in 7 industries. These are spread out between food and drinks, health, fashion, and so forth. Most notably, food and drinks makes up the highest percentage of 25%. With a good understanding of the merchants, let's turn back to PayMe's current position. As of 2022, we have 25,000 merchants on the platform. But moving forward, what is the best way to grow and increase the number of merchants? To answer that, let's take a look at the Hong Kong landscape. 98% of all businesses are small to medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, which translates to 350,000 businesses. To truly become Hong Kong's own e-wallet, we must focus on converting local SMEs into merchants on PayMe. Many of these businesses fall into our existing merchant categories and will be synergetic with our customer base.
In the case, we were told that it was difficult to convince merchants to sign up to a new payment method because they were already affiliated with traditional payment methods such as debit and credit cards. And so this points us to 2 main reasons for their reluctance to adopt. Number 1, difficulty in setting up. And number 2, they don't believe that PayMe will generate enough value for them. To tackle the first issue, difficulty in setting up, we'll focus on communication and marketing. The setup process for PayMe is actually easy and inexpensive, but will add immense value to merchants, especially given the increased acquisition and retention from the first 2 parts of our solution. After the merchant is registered, they will only need 3 tools to start collecting payment through PayMe. For merchants with existing infrastructure, PayMe can be integrated seamlessly. PayMe will also provide logistical aid to those who don't already have these tools to support the integration of the PayMe in-house POS, which is a scalable platform that works as a standalone solution. And after successfully setting up PayMe for business, now we can address the second issue, the value add issue. As we know, PayMe is not just an e-wallet with instant pay capabilities. It's also a social platform with 2.6 million users. We will leverage this base and their social-driven nature to attract SMEs through a feature to enhance our social platform, Share Your Purchase. When users open PayMe, underneath their profile, there will be a list of transactions that they've made. Each transaction will display the store name, the product that they ordered, and the dollar amount. And each of these elements is opt-in to share with friends and family. Customers can then comment and rate products that they buy, and each review is linked to the restaurant's address or website. 72% of consumers in 2022 say that they rely on reviews to find businesses. So having this feature more accessible and connected to their social networks will add immense value for them. And by virtue of adding value to customers, PayMe becomes valuable to merchants as well, who want to be where their customers are. Beyond that, this feature will help merchants become more integrated into the local community and provide marketing benefits. In fact, a recent Northwestern University study suggests that having at least 5 quality product reviews can increase the likelihood of purchase by 270%. So given the nature of SMEs, this will create a real impact. In addition to communicating this value add, new merchants will have a 0% per transaction fee to incentivize quick adoption of PayMe. After that, we'll develop user stickiness and the regular transaction fees will be enacted. And so with that, we have addressed the third and final managerial goal of monetizing by further developing the P2M strategy. But how will the solution be implemented?
Management at HSBC and PayMe expect implementation in a 3 to 5 year timeframe, and the Pay solution is designed to launch in no more than 3 years. First, we'll implement PayMe Family to service Gen Z with a retention-inducing service as soon as possible. Our app will first be iterated with focus groups in order to optimize the interface through trial and error. Given an in-house fintech team of 250 employees, we can confidently develop features within a 12 to 16 month timeframe and launch it in a software update around Q2 2023. Next, we will launch PayMe Invest around Q1 2024. The biggest challenge with this update is integration with other HSBC financial products, so we're outsourcing digital safety needs to Digipal, a Hong Kong cybersecurity consultant, to speed up this process and fill any expertise gap in integration with HSBC platforms. So, given the magnitude of these undertakings, what is the financial impact of this solution? In a nutshell, our solution generates 2.9 billion Hong Kong dollars of revenue. This is captured by both our P2M and customer growth streams. The majority of revenues are generated by merchant transaction fees. However, since the customer growth is integral catalyst for our merchant revenue growth, I'll dive into it at a deeper level. First, let's look into the customer growth projections. 1.4 million incremental users will be onboarded to the platform by 2026. On the projections on the left, you can see the bars for customer growth in blue, senior customers, and green, younger customers. We split the model into these two categories to apply age-specific assumptions and be more accurate. For younger customers, the 12.8% churn rate is decreased because diversified product offerings like PayMe Family and PayMe Invest attach users to the HSBC ecosystem, increasing their retention rate to 88%. As for older customers, acquisition is boosted by 63% from PayMe Young users who want to care for their elders and are onboarding them on the family account. Newly acquired customers have an average lifetime value of $15,000 to $17,000 based on age, which leads us to our final revenue figure. So now that we have an understanding of the upside, let's understand the drivers behind the solution. We will be investing 2 billion HKD over the projected 4 years, consisting mostly of the digital wallet team expansion. We set an ambitious 30% growth target for the fintech team, guided by the 2021 McKinsey FinTech report. For the sake of increased accuracy, we split up personnel costs into software, marketing, and HR staff, each with their individual salaries. We then see a boost of cost in 2023, which stems from foregone transaction fees due to our zero-free structure incentive for merchant acquisition. Those are the red bars you can see on the graph. The bottom cost category, cybersecurity, is the small dark line at the top of the graph. This service will cost a projected 4.3 million HKD of additional investment, which could vary about 20% depending on company selection. We consider Digipal as well as Rackspace and NexusGuard, all Hong Kong local cybersecurity consultants. Now, overall, this project generates 900 million in profits, a very strong investment opportunity. Nonetheless, there are some risks and mitigations to consider. We'd like to highlight risk number 3, challenges for PayMe integration. Even though PayMe with HSBC different platforms will be a challenge that we need to overcome, we want to streamline and optimize this process by only offering essential offerings when we first launch it into the market.
So in conclusion, we are confident that our Pay solution will encourage PayMe accessibility, address retention, and yield profitability. PayMe Family and PayMe Invest will put PayMe and HSBC in the hands of Hong Kongers of all ages. And altogether, we'll see an 11% increase in user retention, 26% increase in elderly sign-up rate, 23% increase in P2M market share in 3 years. Most importantly, PayMe will build a stronger, seamless payment and financial services system. Thank you for listening, and we'll now open the floor to questions.
Thank you, team. Toronto University from Canada. Judges, let's reset the timer first at 15 minutes. Judges, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, guys. I think one of the questions, a big determinant of your revenue upside is the lifetime value of a customer, right? Can you talk a little bit about what goes into that 15 to 17,000? Like, what is that value derived from?
Absolutely. So we looked at averages for different banks because we didn't have specific insights on HSBC. So we looked at different Hong Kong banks, and then we saw that for customers on average, this is the figure that we came up with. And then the 17 to 15% variation was given as a range for age. And so since we split up our customer bases into two different segments, in order to be more accurate, we matched the $15,000 figure with older customers and $17,000 figure with younger customers, as per the research study that we cited this number from. And I think the name of the research study is here at the bottom of key assumptions, the Hong Kong Banking Data Repository. So.
Okay, so it's the lifetime value of a banking relationship with the customer.
Absolutely.
So capturing the upside is then predicated on essentially taking PayMe customers and then making them full customers of the bank.
Exactly. So we take the amount of incremental customer growth and we multiply that by a 4-year stretch over the lifetime value, which is that range from 15 to 17,000.
Okay, I'll ask the next question. From being a payment solution to jumping to investment app, right? Isn't that a very big jump? And what is the assumption that consumers will be open to that jump? And how do you differentiate PayMe Invest with Flex Invest, which is within the main apps we call mobile apps, or even Easy Invest, which is a separate apps that HSBC also own, to prevent like cannibalization?
Yeah, so we definitely considered those considerations when we were coming up with our solution. And that's why we took these statistics from a study that McKinsey did on Hong Kong consumers. And actually, after the pandemic, a lot more young consumers are trying to save more and invest more so they can build their portfolios and be more resilient in the face of economic adversities. And so with this understanding that young consumers want to invest more, we want to be able to integrate it with a platform that they're already using, for example, for their social functions, communicating with their friends and sharing, being able to transfer money to each other through this app that they're already using. And so by integrating it in this way, we're going to be able to encourage them to use it more and encourage the saving opportunity, which then links them to other investment apps and other HSBC products. So it won't cannibalize it because this will essentially allow them to save money and earn, a small interest rate. But that actually, with the money that they're able to grow on the app, that links them to be able to invest it on HSBC Easy Invest. And so we're essentially driving more traffic to those other financial products that HSBC offers.
Mm-hmm. So for investment, you are targeting at the younger crowd, right? And however, for PayMe family, you're targeting at both young as well as old.
Yeah, so that was kind of, so we were trying to acquire more of the customers on the older end by having the younger generations kind of onboard them. And then with the younger generations, we already have them on the app. We want to make their functionality as a part of our revenue to be more profitable and more long-term and to retain them. And that's through the saving function as well as the investing function.
Okay. So how do you deal with the brand image, right? Because on one end, you're trying to also make it relevant to older people having like big fonts. And the other end, you're trying to be attractive to young people through PayMe Invest, right? So how do you manage the brand image to make sure that it's consistent?
So the way that we're kind of approaching the family account is that a younger customer would be opening it for example, their parents or their grandmothers. And so essentially the target customer is still that younger generation, but because such a big part of Hong Kong culture where PayMe operates is that a large part of their financial spending and transactions is to provide for these older generations. This is kind of a supplementary account that'll help them to do just that. And the additional larger fonts accessibility features, that's going to come with that separate app that's for kind of tailored towards the family members.
Right.
Okay. So it's kind of like a separate app.
Right. Okay. So within PayMe family account, how do you monetize it? So why is it different from what people are doing these days, right? Which they can still send pocket money to their kids or younger kind of like children, like 18 and above. And they can also, give their parents money, right? So what's different about today's features versus what you're recommending? And how do you monetize it? Is it just a normal P2P or how do you make money out of it?
Yeah, so there's kind of a secondary effect that monetizes the app. So we don't initially monetize it directly. So when you're sending money to your elderly family members, there'll be no transaction fee. So just like you said, it is similar to the P2P service in that respect. However, we've found through our research that diversifying the product offerings that you have for each client, so getting these Gen Z customers to sign up their grandparents, will tie them into the HSBC ecosystem, and that drives more retention. So after that, they're likely to open more different financial products with HSBC, and that figure in customer retention increase is what then drives revenue when we multiply it by the lifetime value of customers that we are now keeping in the HSBC ecosystem.
So it's mainly through the acquisition base, and then cross-selling them invest.
Exactly.
Yeah, I thanks for the sharing. So for the pay proposition, you mentioned about the why, but I didn't see the why on the implementation plan. So how we are going to drive more adoption of the PayMe for Business on the merchant side? What's the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So for businesses, we plan on penetrating the market with the following strategies. So solution 1 and solution 2 will draw in new customers, and that naturally pressures SMEs to adopt PayMe. There's already high awareness of the mobile payment market through Alipay, WeChat Pay, and different products like that in the market. So we have a promotion campaign that will run throughout the implementation timeline, which is why we didn't specify it on this slide, that offers a 0% transaction fee for 8 months, as opposed to the 6 months 0% transaction fee that we see competitors offering. So that's our go-to-market strategy, is really by offering that longer discount timeline, and we see that these businesses, these SMEs, operate in communities from the research that we've conducted, and so we think that mouth-to-mouth advertisement about the zero fee structure for 8 months will also take this a long way. So to summarize, essentially, there's going to be a lot of pressure on SMEs to transition to the system from the presence of the mobile payment market in Hong Kong. And secondly, we're going to be beating out competition with longer 0% transaction fee incentives.
Okay, so that's like the PayMe for business side, and then there's the PayMe for consumer side, right? PayMe for business side, I just want to dig a little bit deeper, right? So you mentioned about an integrated system and no need to buy any add-ons. So right now, what people can use, like merchants basically use the mobile phone or whichever mobile apps they have and basically download PayMe, right? So in your chart, then are you suggesting for us to invest in hardware, pause hardware, and replace our partners, merchant acquirers, and create our own hardware?
I can tackle this.
Go ahead.
Oh, I can tackle this part of the question first, and then Chloe, if you want, you can add on after me. So we definitely recognize that that is an issue, and a lot of the reason why SMEs in Hong Kong are reluctant to adopt PayMe is because they thought they lacked the infrastructure. But after doing extensive research on how the PayMe option works, we saw on the website that you guys currently require 3 things in order for it to fully process. So you need a QR code scanner, a printer for the receipt, and the one terminal. However, we have also considered the fact that while some businesses have these existing infrastructure, other businesses don't. And that is why we also plan to market the PayMe in-house POS system, which is like an all-in-one device that can provide a QR code, it can print receipts, and it can also like track your orders. So we see that it can also be implemented into existing infrastructure.
So there's further investment of hardware cost then, right? So similar to Square.
Actually, I'm pretty sure PayMe already has these existing infrastructure, and the PayMe in-house POS is already developed. So all we have to do is market it to these SMEs.
So we don't, basically we work with master acquirers, right? For POS terminals. If not, then merchants have their own devices. So it's basically additional investment if if we need to have hardware?
If they already have the existing infrastructure, then the system can be implemented very smoothly. However, if they don't have the infrastructure, then that means they do have to pay extra for it, which we do cover in the later slides. So if Chloe, if you could go on to the later slides.
I guess my point is, how do you yield profit, right? Because you mentioned in your solution yielding profit, and then you mentioned about having your own hardware, and you also mentioned about we can actually have kind of a review section so that people know more about the merchant. But I still don't get the part about how you yield profit on Pay Me for Business.
Yeah, for sure. So in the case, it was mentioned that the P2P segment isn't really directly profitable on its own. And that is why the Pay Me executive team wants to focus on the P2M aspect of the case, which is you can get a transaction fee for every single transaction. So we recognize that there's huge potential within the Hong Kong market. And in the market research that we've conducted, 98% are SMEs, and they make up 350,000 customers. So that is a huge customer base. And with these strategies, we plan to increase the market share in those. So the more merchants we have, the more per transaction fee that we will get. And also to answer your earlier question about the POS system, underneath the 8 months and onward, there's actually two pricing strategies. So the first one is the 1.2% transaction fee for Pay Me Business app transactions. That is for businesses with existing infrastructure, and the 1.5% is for businesses who don't have it. And for Pay Me is going to.
So I guess in the interest of time, right? So what I'm looking for is what is unique about your solution, right? So you don't have to repeat what you discovered in the case study or what we are currently doing, but on top of that, right? What is the value add in your business case, right? Particularly on Pay Me for Business, because we see that in Pay Me for Consumers. So what will you add on to make it more profitable, right? Other than increasing business merchant base, which is already what's happening today.
Oh yeah, sounds good. Let's turn back to the earlier slide with the additional feature for Julia. Yeah, so using this new opt-in feature, which is called Share Your Purchase, users can now share the daily transaction. So for example, PayMe has always tried to become more of a social platform. That's why they've implemented many features like Facebook and WhatsApp, like for example, sending fun messages. Another feature that those apps offer are also like stories that they can post on a daily basis. So this is similar in nature, but also has unique PayMe features. So for example, you can rate the services, and based on our research, we can see that rating it will convince more customers to buy it. And in turn, that will be more valuable to businesses, especially small businesses who lack marketing power.
Time for a very quick question, maybe. Anyone?
Any other participant who hasn't spoke, do you want to share your opinions or share your views?
Yeah, for sure. I guess for the last minute, if Chloe, if you can go to our appendix slide looking at competitors, I can talk a bit more about the motivation behind also addressing this older customer segment. We see that there's also a tremendous opportunity here to allow PayMe to cater to elders, because our current competitors, the most they've done so far is only operate some sort of a senior care mode. And so through this competitor analysis, we also saw that there is a high potential here to also allow for revamping and allow for that ease of access there as well. So all in all, we're allowing PayMe to be a user-friendly tool, not only for elders, but also a tool that is that has high utilization for youth as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Team Canada from the University of Toronto. Since we have almost run out of time, we'll end the Q&A here. Team Canada, we will see you in the judges sharing session, which will take place after the judges have decided on the results of this final. So
Thank
see you soon.